Now it's time for Forum Daily's weekly energy update with Dan McTeague, president of Canadians for Affordable Energy. Take it away, Dan.
Well, thank you for that, Nima. And yes, it is now September, the first week of September. Everything's getting back to normal. Kids are back to school. And guess what? We're only a week away from fuel standards, fuel specifications changing. That happens every 6 months. From April 15th until September 15th, we use something called summer blend gasoline. It's a lot more expensive to produce, at least 5 or 6 cents a liter. So when September 15th rolls around, September 15th to April 15th, we use winter blends of gasoline, and they are cheaper to make. The big difference is that in summer gasoline, they use a product called alkylates. They don't dissipate as much. They don't respond. They're not volatile like butane is. In the winter, we use butane. Butane is a great igniter in cold weather, but not the kind of thing you want to have in high temperatures. So hence why we've been doing this for about 30 years now and why there's a bit of a difference in price. But Nima, there may be a bit of a difference this year, and that's because we're seeing upward pressure at the exact time when prices are expected to fall because of that switchover in specifications for gasoline. We may very well find ourselves in a situation where, with rising oil prices, we may very well see some of that 5 or 6 cents a liter, no more than maybe a 3 or even a 2 cent decrease. It might actually not even be noticed by many in an environment where both diesel and gasoline prices are certainly under pressure. And that really explains what has been happening for the past little while. The market's been focused on oil, and we know that oil is now pushing $88 a barrel for WTI, $92 a barrel for Brent. But not much attention is given to what's called products. That's diesel and gasoline. In both those cases, we're seeing serious pressure on products, and that's likely to make challenging for refineries who have worked at 100%, I don't say 100%, but 95% utilization throughout the summer. They've been running hard. They now have to go through maintenance. They have to make that switch over. A lot of them have put that off because they want to take advantage of these higher, what they call crude to rack spreads. But they now have to go into maintenance, and that means although demand tends to taper off a little bit, it's not going to be enough to really to offset the shortage in supply. So we're going to start to see that, particularly in diesel and to a lesser extent in gasoline, so that by the third week of September, we're going to see prices moving back up again. What does that mean for Canada? Well, for the week ahead, I'm going to say that let's do a draw here and call it a split decision. A 3 cent drop net, pretty much across the country, save and except for areas where they're selling gasoline below cost, or at your favorite gas station. I'm thinking here of Saskatoon, where prices are now 2 to 3 cents a liter below cost. But if you go to British Columbia, now back in the Vancouver area, back to 201, 202, that's probably going to go to 203 or 204, despite this switchover in blends. The rest of BC get about a 2 cent decrease. So you'd be in the 168 to 172 range, especially for the interior places like Kelowna and Kamloops. If I look at Calgary, Edmonton, Alberta, look for prices there to drop net 3 cents a liter. You're paying about $1.42 top end in Calgary. Look for that to go a little bit below $1.40 and about $1.36, $1.37 for Edmonton and places in between and around. For Saskatchewan, as I mentioned earlier, $1.58. Wow, in Saskatoon, I think they're going to have to come up for air. They'll likely have to raise those prices as much as 7 or 8 cents a liter. So if you're in those communities and you see $1.58, don't think about it. Do it. Purchase gasoline because over in Regina, it's about 6 or 7 cents a liter more expensive. They will likely be at 161 versus 162 by the end of the week. Same for Manitoba. Seeing prices move absolutely nowhere, probably dropping about 2 cents down to 161 from the 165, 164 that we're seeing. Ontario, you're seeing $1.70 right now. Look for that price to go up to $1.71, $1.72 by Sunday. By next Wednesday or Thursday, look for that to drop back to about $1.66, $1.67. Always 12 cents a liter more in Quebec with the difference in taxes. And of course, the maritime provinces that saw a bit of a break in some cases, not so much for diesel, but for gasoline. Look for things to reverse themselves a tiny bit, maybe with an increase of about a penny, maybe a penny and a half, especially for Newfoundland and Nova Scotia. New Brunswick and PEI might get off with no change. But on the diesel side, that is the story for the next several weeks. Look for diesel prices to jump as much as after next week. So after September 15th, diesel prices could start to rise an average of 4 cents a liter right across the country. We could be testing $2 for a liter of diesel by Thanksgiving. Nevertheless, that's the report for this week, Nima. We'll talk next week about more factors and influences pushing up energy costs and inflation to boot.
All right, thanks for that, Dan. Again, that was Dan McTeague, president of Canadians for Affordable Energy.